Okay, so there's this massive deforestation project happening right now, and I'm telling you, almost nobody is talking about it. And I mean massive. We're talking about one of the biggest planned deforestation projects on Earth. It's in West Papua, Indonesia. You heard of it? No? Yeah, I figured. That's probably exactly how they want it. Officially, Indonesia says they're doing it to grow rice and feed their own people. But UN investigators, they're saying it's forcing indigenous communities off their land. And guess which one of those stories isn't making headlines? So, get this. Indonesia wants to turn up to 3 million hectares of West Papuan rainforest into farms. Just think about that. That's literally the size of Belgium. Just gone. All for rice paddies. This isn't some random number, by the way. This figure comes from the maximum projected area of two big government plans, the old MIFEE project and the new Food Estate program. They've given it this incredibly boring name, the Food Estate program. And that's the point, right? To make it sound like a bureaucratic nothing. Because what's actually happening is they are systematically wiping out one of the last pristine rainforests left on the planet. And the people who have lived there for thousands of years, they're just considered to be in the way. Take the Malind people. They've been in these forests forever. They know every tree, every river. They have their own sustainable ways of growing food that work with the forest, not against it. But Jakarta looks at this and basically says, nah, this land isn't productive enough. We need to develop it. And here's the messed up reality. When people resist, the military shows up. Not metaphorically. UN investigators have documented a systemic pattern of soldiers intimidating families and forcing them to relocate. They call it securing sites. Securing sites. I mean, come on. That's some next level euphemism right there. This isn't their first time around this block either. Back in 2010, they launched a similar thing called MIFEE under President Yudhoyono. Same promises, same big-name corporations like Wilmar, Korindo, LG, and Daewoo. All of them swooping in to feed Indonesia. But spoiler alert, it didn't exactly work out for the local communities. Now they're back with what critics are calling MMIFE 2.0, bigger, broader, and way less transparent. There's this project called Tanah Merah, where journalists dug up permits that were allegedly forged. They found land being flipped to investors hidden behind a bunch of shell companies, some with ties to the UAE through these insane, complex ownership webs. Land was being cleared before anyone could even ask a question. When officials were finally cornered about it, one of them reportedly said, "It's done." As in, oops, the trees are already cut, so what are you going to do about it now? Honestly, the financial engineering here is kind of impressive in a truly horrible way. You get these concessions shuffled through holding companies with these nominee directors, so no one's name is on anything. They found these weird consultancy payments like Corindo's $22 million one that nobody could explain. And the framing? It's always about national food security. I mean, who's going to argue against feeding your own people, right? Then, oh, by the way, they're building this big Trans-Papua highway for connectivity and public services, which just so happens to give logging trucks and plantation equipment access to forests that were totally unreachable before. What a perfect coincidence. This isn't happening in a vacuum. Indonesia has basically taken notes from everyone else's playbook, like Brazil's expansion in the Amazon and Malaysia's palm oil boom. they've gotten a lot better at the PR game. When the Forest Stewardship Council finally kicked Corindo out in 2021 for deforestation and rights violations, it was like, oh good, justice. Except, the damage was already done. These certification systems are basically locking the barn door after the horses have run away. And officials keep claiming they're only using degraded land, not pristine forest. But the satellite images and the people getting kicked out of their homes tell a completely different story. Look, here's why this matters beyond just West Papua. This is a modern blueprint for land grabbing. You don't need an army to seize land anymore. You get some bureaucrats to declare indigenous land underutilized. You get impact studies from some friendly consultants. You fast-track the permits. And when people resist, you don't call it oppression. You call it a development challenge. It's essentially colonialism, but with PowerPoint presentations and sustainability reports. So here we are. The new president has just doubled down on this program. There are court cases happening, but the chainsaws aren't waiting for verdicts. And the scariest part, honestly, isn't even the deforestation itself. It's how perfectly normal this all sounds when they explain it. Food security, development, jobs. But you have to ask, whose food security? Whose development? And what happens to the people who've been feeding themselves and protecting that forest for generations? Something tells me those aren't the questions they want us asking.